Once I have the first seam stitched, I'm going to lift my presser foot. Remember, I locked that stitch, so that stitch is finished. I'm going to pull, just to get a little bit of that thread out of the way, I'm going to spin my sock around, and I'm going to start where you can see I've already stitched. You won't have the advantage of that pre-stitched line. You'll just have to visualize it in your head. I'm going to drop the needle down by hand with the turn dial. That gives me more control to move nice and slow and to get the needle exactly where I want it to start. I'll drop my presser foot, and then I'm going to go forwards, backwards to lock it, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to run a straight line on the other side of the basting stitch. Now I know that's the seam that I will cut to separate the legs when I'm done. As I get to the end of the sock, I want to curve, and making this curve is tricky because the sock wants to stretch sideways, so I'm keeping my hands nice and close without getting under the needle, so that I can kind of control by spinning with all my fingers around, and I'm going nice and slow. Sometimes the sock doesn't want to turn for you. If that's the case, I can push my needle into the sock, lift my presser foot, and now I can pivot the sock a little bit more. So if I want it to go on a sharp corner, I can pivot it around and drop it again in the direction I want to go, and then continue to stitch. Once I get to that point, I can back up and go forward, and now I've locked it. I lift my presser foot, I pull my threads out, and I trim my seams. At this point, I have seams that are sewn into place for the legs. As I cut up the center of this, I'm going to cut a little bit farther than where these two seams end. And that's going to give me a hole to turn the socks, or turn the legs inside out. So I'm going to slice up the center, okay, all the ways up to this top, and I'm going to leave a hole. Now I have these bulky edges. I might want to trim those bulky edges so that when I go to turn my leg inside out, it's going to be easier to get that nice rounded edge.